All right, y'all, we have a Leo full moon on February 1st. This is going to be a full moon where we can face some confrontations within ourselves, okay? So situations could certainly be blown out of proportion, and it can feel a little uncomfortable in nature for some of us. So allow yourself to go through the necessary transformations. Whatever was happening in July of 2025 can really be surfacing or coming to a head at the moment. And this is just necessary information for you to reflect back on, asking yourself, am I where I wanted to be back last summer? Am I living that reality that I said that I would be by now? And if I'm not, and if I'm still working through the same themes, what do I need to, what needs to leave now so that I can be more in direct path with that expansion that I've been seeking, okay? And how can I be more authentic with myself? Because you will be facing some confrontations right now in whatever area it was that you were dealing with last summer, okay? So allow the truth to set in. You don't need that external validation, okay? This is about receiving validation from yourself and healing your inner child, okay? So it can be an uncomfortable process for some, but for some of us, we can also experience fulfillment as well. Fulfillment if we've given ourselves that validation, fulfillment if we have been sitting with our inner child working through some of the stuff that has been surfacing, okay? So we're all in our different processes, we're all in our different paths right now, but the more that you can be doing the inner work, the more that you can become more authentic with yourself and, allow the necessary processes to take shape, not searching for that external validation, not expecting everybody to understand the journey that you need to go on, okay? The better off you're gonna be right now, because with Saturn and Neptune, going back into Aries, this is gonna be a time where a lot of us are on our solo journeys, and we need to be strong and confident within ourselves. That's what this Leo full moon is asking of us. And if we haven't been putting in the work, if we've been avoiding taking accountability, avoiding confrontation, all of that, not knowing our power, not standing in our power, we're really gonna feel that right now, okay? It's gonna be easy to get swept up into, the collective right now. It's really gonna be easy to get swept up into what everybody else is doing, caring what other people are, thinking. It doesn't matter what they're thinking or doing it right now, because they're all really focused on what they're dealing with in their own personal realities, and that's what you should be focusing on. So focus on what's coming up for you and allow the necessary releases that need to take place, okay, babe? And you can watch this for your rising sun and moon. All right, Aries, let's have a conversation. So with this full moon, a lot of you can realize truths about you, what feels most authentic to you. If you've been working on certain creative projects, that can come to the light, but there can be a lot of insecurities surface in that area. Like, you could receive proof in your mind if you have the belief that your creative projects, won't bear fruition, that other people are going to think that what you're doing is dumb. Okay, there can be insecurities that are just surfacing out that could be blockages in you from reaching your fullest potential. Some of you could be dimming your light because you care too much about what other people think as well. There can be sudden truths that surface around what's not authentic to you. There can be sudden endings within friendships or, partings with your community that come out of nowhere, okay? So I just feel like there's been a lot of tension in your communities, within your friendships. But there can also be, tension with needing things to happen overnight. And I think that a lot of you are realizing that things are not going to be happening overnight as you would like them to. Some of you are learning, to practice more patience. And you're really seeing what is not fully in alignment with yourself. You're going to be seeing where you have held yourself back. Where have you been? Where else you've been, standing too much in your ego? Where have you been, a little bit more selfish in certain areas as well? All the Aries defenses are coming up at the moment for us to have a gander at. I mean, I'm an Aries myself. Okay, so it can be hard to look at some of our heavy stuff that's coming out, and other people might be pointing the finger right now, and you might feel attacked. It's going to be very easy to feel personally attacked. It's going to be easy for you to take situations personally at the moment. Okay, a lot of you are going to be seeing your finances changing overnight or feeling unpredictable. A lot of things in your life feel unpredictable, and that can be taking a hit at your self-esteem, taking a hit to your confidence. But y'all are really learning lessons in creating more stability for yourself and not focusing too much on the judgment of others, but also learning from your past mistakes, not taking it personally, and in fact using it as a period of time to gain more confidence within yourself, having belief in yourself, even whenever you don't have external proof, even whenever you feel like nobody's on your side, nobody's cheering you on. Some of you could, feel an absence within certain individuals in your life where you don't feel like people are supporting you in your visions, in your creative projects, okay? For some of you, you can have significant success overnight. But I do feel like if you do have an online platform, some of you might notice some unpredictability in that as well. And as we can see with all these planets moving through Aquarius in general, there's unpredictability within technology. There's unpredictability with engaging in our sense of community. And we're seeing that play out right now, okay? So don't be taking things personally right now. Don't be taking out your frustrations on others, okay? Because everybody's gonna feel this instability at the moment. So you don't need to be feeling like you're the only person in the world that's feeling this, because you're not, okay? And some of you might even see some drama that's surfacing, or some drama that has been stirred up from the past that can also be surfacing, creating some type of divide between you and your community, or you feeling like you're able to tap into your authenticity. That can certainly be surfacing during this period of time, but it's really, you need to choose you at the end of the day, and not in a selfish way, of course, but what is most authentic to you. Are there certain creative projects that you have been really wanting to dive into? Is there something new that you really want to create and expand into? Are there certain people that you need to part ways from now? Okay, you're gonna be feeling this. Whatever your intentions were that were set back last July, whatever tensions you had during that period of time, because we were also heavy in Mercury retrograde during that period of time in Leo, and this was all happening in this area of your chart, okay? So was there drama that was surfacing during that period of time? Were there certain times where you don't feel like you were being super authentic to what you wanted to do during that period of time? Were there outside circumstances that were preventing you from moving forward? Were there things that you said in the heat of the moment that you later regretted? Okay, a lot of that stuff could be surfacing at the moment if that was true for you. And I think that some of you can also experience some, it just feels like there's insecurities that have been arising for you around this period of time. Like maybe you feel like your finances aren't so predictable. Some of you could have spontaneously lost your job, or received a drop in income out of nowhere, or you're feeling like your sense of community or your friendships are unstable. People that you surrounded yourself with. Maybe you're realizing like some of your values don't align. That's very possible for some of you. But this is just a period of time where you're learning to be so confident in yourself, so confident in your direction, and anything that's being observed about your behavior right now. This is a time to, if multiple people are saying the same thing about their observations about you, maybe it's time to work through those things. Maybe you can admit to yourself that, hey, this is a pattern that I run in my, community, my relationships with others, or, I tend to let go of a dream just because I feel like there's some effort and work that needs to happen, and I'm excited about this thing over here. Nothing ever comes to completion, okay? These aren't criticisms. Some of them might be, okay? But some of us need to be going through certain reflections right now, especially as Saturn and Neptune are making their way through Aries. You will be getting reality checks, okay? This is just part of the process, and it's only there to strengthen you and to put you directly on your path, okay? So allow that to happen. Some of you could even be called to go back to certain things that you loved in your childhood. That can really bring you a lot of happiness right now. For me as an Aries, I've been iced in my house during this situation, and I've been listening to old school Britney Spears and just dancing around my room since I can't be outside walking or getting any exercise. So I've just been playing Britney Spears, and it's been a beautiful time. I grew up with her. So use stuff like that, like just have a lot of fun right now, even if you feel like everything around you feels unstable, uncertain, okay? Connections feel uncertain, income feels uncertain. Have fun. Bring in that creativity, and really tap into that inner child right now, Aries. Y'all are the children of the zodiac, and maybe you need to let go of some of your childish ways also, because we're being called to be leaders over the next couple of years with Saturn going through our sign. Okay, so we're going to really be getting that discipline that's necessary, but have fun with it. Find little tiny things throughout your day that are really going to light you up, but also prioritize stability, okay? Prioritize ways that you can build up your financial resources. Find ways where you can set healthy boundaries that need to be set, and come up with a consistent routine for yourself. And that's really going to set you up for success. All right, Taurus, let's have a conversation. So I feel like for a little while now, the focus has been around some of your careers or your direction in life, taking more responsibilities. Some of you all of a sudden either have received discipline out of nowhere or promotions out of nowhere that maybe feel a lot to handle, okay? Maybe some of you don't feel like super respected, having confrontations that come up out of nowhere. That can be a little alarming. Some of you, if you've received a promotion around this full moon, you might have a hard time, having a proper work-life balance, okay? And see, we had the new moon in Leo back in July of last year, and we were also having that Mercury retrograde around July of last year. So whatever themes were coming up and surfacing around then, this is whenever it's all really coming to a head, coming to culmination. So if there was any type of disagreements within your personal relationships, disagreements within your family, trying to find that nice work-life balance, and that can really be coming to a head for a lot of you to observe at the moment. Yeah, I just see that situations within your public life, within your marriages, within your career could really be coming to a head, and situations are coming up out of nowhere, okay? Secrets are revealed to you, with how people really have felt this whole time, or, necessary conversations that you've needed to have for a long time with other individuals, could be arising, could be surfacing right now. Your personal life could be getting in the way of your, public goals, your public life. You know, some of you could be bringing your home life into work, and that is impacting your public image, okay? Any type of, you know, if you were dealing with personal issues back this past summer, some of that can be brought to the table again, and you're like, oh, this is really impacting my ability to perform, okay? And I'm not predicting anything bad for any of you, but I do think that some of you are being asked to learn how to have a nice work-life balance, or to prioritize nurturing things at home or within your personal relationships. Take that just as seriously. Find a nice balance with that. And I think that there will be the tendency to take things personally at the moment. Some of you could be coming under some heat, or some of you could be really frustrated because you feel like you're always the one who's putting in all the work. You feel like you're putting in all the effort. You don't feel like you're receiving any type of respect or recognition for situations. So some of you could impulsively quit a job out of nowhere. You know, they weren't expecting it. Or you could be released from a certain position out of nowhere and you weren't expecting it. And I'm not predicting anybody's getting fired, but I am saying that there's a lot of stuff coming to a head within your professional life. There's a lot of things coming to a head in your marriages. There's a lot of things coming to head, you know, with your life directions. Some of you could be feeling really impatient, but I urge you, you know, not to be acting from a scarcity mindset, because some of you can get in that way. You're going to get this chart's kind of reading that there can be self-sabotage tendencies right now, getting in your own way. Maybe you don't like a certain result that you've gotten because you feel like you've worked so hard for something, but it isn't living up to the standards that you've set for yourself. Maybe you've, you know, set impossible goals for yourself and you're really irritated and upset. And maybe you're blaming outside circumstances, okay? But, you know, you're really being asked to take a step back. Yeah, you hear that? Someone's interrupting my film. Maybe you keep feeling like your goals and your plans keep getting rerouted and it is frustrating, or you feel like no matter how much work you're putting into situations, you're not receiving the recognition for them. Okay, people aren't seeing the effort that you're trying to put in. You feel disrespected. Maybe you're putting in a lot of effort and work into a certain relationship in your life, but you keep feeling like they're disrespecting you, or they're not seeing you for all the work. They're putting too much responsibility on you. You feel like your hands are full and you don't feel like you're getting anything out of it, so it leaves you feeling depleted. Therefore your performance isn't as good, because you're like, well, what am I even doing any of this for? What am I even doing any of this for? Okay, some of you can really be feeling that. For some of you, there could be rethinking about moving as well. Maybe some of you lost your job or broken up with somebody, and your plans to relocate or to move are also shifting at the moment. There's some realizations about where you really want to make your home. Do you feel comfortable in your current environment? Is it in alignment with what you really want to achieve down the road? Okay, there can be some reconsiderations in that department, especially if you have some Gemini in your chart as well. So now is kind of a period of time where it would benefit you to take a step back and evaluate what it is that you really want down the line, and reevaluate the type of where you've been putting in your efforts if you're frustrated. Reevaluate the people that you keep close to you if you feel like you've been disrespected or let down time and time again. And if you feel like you're not being fairly compensated at work or within your marriage, you know, take a step back and ask yourself, am I going to be happy with this situation in the long term? Or is it time to be uncomfortable for a little bit? Get out of my security, get out of my comfort zone, and go down a new path, because that's also what this full moon is kind of about for some of you, is really stepping out of your comfort zone. Okay, where have you been getting too comfortable? Because now you kind of can't avoid that, because I feel like whatever your comfort zone is, you're feeling the heaviness of it. You're feeling the heaviness of it. You're feeling, you know, if it's time to cut off certain people, if it's time to leave a certain connection or leave behind, you know, patterns from the family, whatever. It's time to let that stuff go. And that's going to be coming to a head right now. And that's why you might feel the heaviness. You might feel like authority figures are breathing down your neck, or you feel like all of this pressure is upon you and you can't hide how you feel about it anymore. Okay, you know, and some of you are having revelations overnight, you know, sudden awakenings to, you know, situations, seeing things for what they are. And I think some of you do have the motivation to get yourself out from where you are. You have the motivation to put in a little bit more work so that you can get unstuck. Okay, so allow yourself this process. Allow yourself to get more serious and motivated and be spontaneous and adaptable to the changing situations in your life. All right, Gemini, let's have a conversation. Whatever was the theme this past summer, around July, things could be resurfacing, or things could be coming to a head at this point, and probably around, for some of you, maybe you bought a car around then and, you know, you're starting to have issues now. It doesn't have to be the case. Or you could be rethinking purchasing a new vehicle. There can be certain conversations that you were having around the summer that are now surfacing now, or, you know, around similar themes within your life that were really magnified at the time. Could be revisiting certain conversations, you know, or you could also be moving as well. That can certainly be coming up at the moment, and I think that's going to apply to quite a few of you. There can be sudden revelations around wanting to move somewhere else. Okay, talks could be coming up around that. Some of you could be, you know, either going through breakups or, you know, just sudden changes within your life direction, and therefore you feel like a lot of things need to change over the long term. You know, some of you could be like, okay, I need to start changing this right now so that I can do this, you know, 6 months from now or a year from now. I think that you're just starting to evaluate what needs to be done on a micro level right now so that you can have that down the road. You're starting to realize that your short-term actions have long-term consequences, good or bad. Okay, and I think some of you could have come to sudden decisions over the past week around maybe going back to school, maybe going on a long trip somewhere, maybe, you know, moving. Yeah, moving just keeps coming up for some of you. Some of you could even feel a little distant at the moment, weighing out pros and cons around having certain conversations that need to be had. I think that you could be changing your minds about something that maybe you thought was going to be good in the long run for you, but you're realizing, I want to change my mind. I think that because Geminis are kind of associated with fickleness and, you know, changeability. So some of you could really be changing your mind all of a sudden about situations because you didn't realize that, you know, things would take longer than they are. There can be some impatience around that area, things taking too long for you. There can also be a lot of uncertainties about where the future is heading. and uncertainties about how you really feel and believe about situations because you keep finding that you're changing your mind, and this brings inconsistency into other areas of your life, okay? There can be sudden truths that are revealed to either you or people within your life as well. Whatever communications that you're having, I feel like there's some conversations involving someone else about what the future is going to look like down the road with each other. And it doesn't have to be bad, but I think that these conversations are going to come out of nowhere for some of you, kind of blindsiding, if that makes sense. But I think that they ultimately bring clarity. They bring clarity. And I hear somebody shoveling snow out there. So it could just be situations where we need to address this right now so that it's going to be beneficial for us over the long term, okay? Because you're realizing that, hey, I'm tired of quick fixes. We need to implement situations that are going to help us out down the road, you know, course correct right now, so that down the road things aren't blowing up, okay? There can be the tendency to see things in black and white at the moment. So I urge you to take a step back before you make decisions or have impulsive conversations that can, you know, end things overnight. Because I guarantee some of you are going to be, you know, regretting making decisions out of anxiety. Some of you can, you know, disappear on people out of nowhere, become very distant, be a little elusive, like, you know, Gemini types can be. So that can definitely cause tension. Some of you could be going through some mental health stuff. Some of you could be traveling on impulse and then, you know, worry other people. Okay, especially if you've chosen to fly somewhere during this snowstorm, or you've chosen to, you know, all of a sudden move on impulse because your anxieties were, you know, getting the best of you, or you've sabotaged another relationship and now, you know, regrets can surface for sure. This astrology definitely speaks to if you make impulsive decisions right now that can impact you in the long term, and you will have regrets almost immediately as soon as you make these decisions. So I don't recommend it, okay? I don't recommend it, because a lot of you have been going through wounds around feeling like you can't be adaptable to change, or you can't be as spontaneous as normal. And I think some of you have been forced to ground, you know, focus on your financial resources. And I think that's what's holding a lot of you back, is financial resources. You don't feel like you would be able to adapt to sudden situations that arise in your life, and that can be causing you the anxiety. So therefore that would instigate, like, maybe I should go back to school so that I can support myself better going forward. Or maybe I should move, you know, across the country where there's more opportunities for me to really thrive. Doing that. Or some of you are realizing that life is too short. Maybe I should, you know, go after what is important to me. And, you know, your whole, like, life and belief system have changed as a result, because from some of these transits, maybe some of you have had encounters where you realize your own mortality, or you realize how important community is. So, you know, you're just really unraveling those aspects within your chart. But I do feel like there's been insecurities around finances, setting boundaries, being consistent, your own value system. Okay, some of you are getting really clear about your own value systems as well. If you're dealing with a Gemini who isn't, you know, really doing the work, you know what I'm saying, who can be a little self-unaware at times, maybe they've been inconsistent with their communication with you, and you're discovering some certain truths, and therefore confronting them, you know, maybe saying goodbye, and they're learning that their actions do have consequences, okay? Or if you're a Gemini, you have Gemini placements, you're just realizing, hey, maybe I haven't been super authentic about this with somebody, or I haven't been super authentic with myself about this, and it's time that I turn over a new leaf and focus on this, because you know, going into February and March, a lot of you are going to be called to get more disciplined about situations, or you know, you're going to be faced with some tough pills to swallow if you haven't been taking things super seriously as they should. Okay, obviously you don't need to take life too seriously, but you know, if you've been choosing to stay asleep to certain aspects about yourself, or you've been overlooking the truth, withholding the truth, you know, there can be consequences to pay. Okay, so just be aware of that. Now, I will say that a lot of you have the ability to really have conversations with others during this period of time, over this next weekend leading into the next week, with people in your life. Maybe connections have been sabotaged over the past 6 months, or there's just been a lack of communication, or communication that has been a little rough around the edges. You have the ability to heal those relationships right now. You know, have more clarity, discover more truths within those situations. Okay, and I do see that if you're in the market for a new car or mode of transportation, that is possible too. All right, Cancer, let's have a conversation. I feel like over the past week, some of you could have been dealing with contemplating re-signing a certain lease with another individual, or you know, reevaluating certain contracts that you've been in. Maybe there's some debts that are coming to the surface at the moment, or there can be sudden endings that maybe feel uncomfortable out of nowhere. Okay, sudden truths could be revealed to you and you can't not see it. You know, it's kind of like bodies coming to the surface, kind of like, I know that they've been under there, I've been avoid looking at them, but they're up here now and can't avoid seeing them now. You know, I can't unsee certain things. And you might feel like that is impacting your sense of stability. Okay, sudden truths that have been revealed to you, or you know, whatever it is, it's like you cannot unsee these situations, but they feel destabilizing in nature. And you know, since July, you know, this has been a process for you where you've been focusing on creating more stability, maybe more financial stability for yourselves, because maybe you feel like, you know, Cancers love their comfort zone. Okay, they love what's familiar, and maybe you've been kind of stubborn and holding on to certain situations or certain people or certain lifestyles for far too long now. And now is the time where, if you're not willing to let that go, or you're not allowing certain situations to transform, then it's going to happen regardless if you want it to or not. Okay, and some of you are likely experiencing that now. There can also be some frustrations with finances and or resources tied up with another individual, or maybe you've relied on certain individuals for, you know, a sense of stability or resources, or they've been relying on you. And you know, that's coming to a head now for you to address, for you to evaluate. Some of you are going to be looking in the mirror and asking yourself, am I okay with my financial situation? Am I okay with the type of stability that I have built for myself? Or do I find myself relying too much on others? Or are they relying too much on me? How can I be more sovereign in this? Okay, how can I create stronger boundaries that need to be asserted? Have I been aligning with my own value system? Or have, you know, other people been overstepping my boundaries, not aligning with certain values that I hold near and dear. Okay. And some of your, you know, I just feel like I'm seeing your car getting towed, or possessions getting, you know, repossessed. You know, I'm not saying that that's happening to you. Of course not. But I'm saying is, I feel like for some of you, you might feel like your privacy has been invaded, or things are just being taken from you that you've held on for so long, out of comfort. But you're realizing, you know, you're like, I can't hold on to that anymore. And it's time for it to go. I can't afford that anymore. And it's not that you can't afford it physically. It's just that is no longer, it no longer resonates with you. And by holding on to it, it's really weighing you down. It's time to let some of these situations go so that you can attract a more stable life. Okay? I think that a lot of things have been happening that are out of your control. And maybe even some of you could be losing friends or choosing to walk away from certain friendships, certain community members. Some of you might feel like you don't resonate with certain people that have been in your life forever. But I just feel like a lot of you have been staying in situations just because they're familiar, just because they've been comfortable, but it's just gotten to the point where you can't stay in it anymore. These situations aren't comfortable anymore. Okay? Doesn't matter how long you've known an individual. Doesn't matter how, you know, how much effort that you've put into something. It's not stable. Okay? And any instability within these connections that you're experiencing, it's always been that way. It's just really loud now. You're realizing maybe how much effort and work that you've put into situations, and that's just not been reciprocal. You feel like a debt deficit there. You know, maybe if people always feel indebted to you, they're always like, oh, I owe you one. I owe you one. I owe you one. But you never feel, you know, proper reciprocation in those connections. Always, you know, it's kind of like you've got these tally marks, and, you know, it just keeps adding up. It's like, all right, I helped him out here. 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 And you just keep making excuses for him. But it's getting old. And now you're starting to feel the heaviness and the weight of them. Okay? You don't need to be carrying around their stuff for them. You don't need to be doing anything for them anymore. Okay? And vice versa. Maybe you realize that you've been overstepping boundaries too. That's also a possibility. Okay, none of us are innocent. But, you know, sudden truths and realizations around that can be surfacing for you. To be like, you know what, that actually hasn't been super stable for me. That hasn't provided me with what I need anymore. And you're also realizing what's been holding you back from creating an abundance for yourself. If you feel, you know, significant scarcity and lack at the moment, you know, that can certainly be coming up. And I feel like, you know, deep wounds around not feeling like you can take care of yourself, like you can take responsibility for things. Like, you know, maybe your confidence has been low within yourself. Yeah. Maybe your self-esteem has been low. Maybe you don't feel like, if you know, if you're married to somebody, maybe you feel like you feel alone in the marriage. Maybe you just have lost confidence in that area. Maybe you feel like people keep minimizing you at work and not taking you seriously, not, you know, giving you that promotion that you know you deserve. Okay, all of that stuff can be surfacing, and since Jupiter's been in your sign and it's retrograde right now, some of you can really feel pulled back into the past, or notice certain behaviors from the past are surfacing, and they're really here for you to, you know, reevaluate. Do I want to bring this with me in the future? Is this stable for me? Is this something that's supportive for me going forward? Or is it time to leave this back here, even if it feels uncomfortable? Even if I feel like, you know, I'm being called out for this. Okay? Because your patterns are magnified, babe. Your physical life is magnified at the moment. If something is not in alignment for you, something is not good for you, it is going to be so loud, it's going to be so uncomfortable, and it's going to be so clear. And all you have to do is cut ties. Cut ties, okay? Do it. Do it. But I am seeing, if you are willing to be adaptable with the necessary changes that need to happen, see the truth and not hide from it, not make excuses, not giving it another chance. If you know, stop giving it chances. If you've given it chance after chance, stop making excuses. You know, stop allowing your lack of confidence within yourself. Or, you know, you're going to be like, that's just going to be a lot of responsibility. I've been staying in this situation out of convenience. By walking away, I'm going to have to, you know, trust myself that I'm making the right decision, but also trust myself that I can bring in the resources necessary for this change. It's going to be uncomfortable at first. Allow yourself to do it, okay? Because would you rather be, if you knew that in a year's time, you're going to be living your dream life, but you have to put up with some discomfort for 6 months to get there, versus, you know, never being able to reach that dream life because you'd rather just be, you're more uncomfortable sitting in the discomfort just because you've always known it, okay? So let that stuff go. Have your eyes on the prize, okay? Have your eyes on the prize. Do what you need to do to maintain stability, a sense of authority, okay? Get your voice back, babe. I feel like, because you see I started talking kind of weakly, I feel like some of you have lost your voice, or you don't feel like you can stand up to a certain individual because you're afraid you're going to lose everything. Who cares? You need to build it on your own and make sure that that is purely yours, and you're not going to be in these types of situations anymore. You know what I'm saying? If something is so that you don't feel like you can speak up, you don't feel like you can be yourself, you feel like you need to walk on eggshells, that was never a solid, stable thing for you to have in general, okay? So let it go, okay? All right, Leo, let's have a conversation. I feel like y'all have been getting heavy lessons within your relationships, not just romantic, friends, roommates, co-workers, clients, you know, all that jazz. Or, you know, in the very least, lessons within reciprocation and values. And for some of you, you know, what is fair compensation, okay? There can be sudden truths that have been revealed to you within certain connections. And, you know, whatever life lessons that you've been learning since July of this last year, you know, that kind of stuff can be coming to a head right now, or you can be reevaluating certain situations that were arising around then and what have been culminating up until now. And, you know, the focus is going to be on your physical reality. The focus for some of you could even be on, you know, your physical body too. You know, situations could have come up with that. Or, you know, how you see yourself, how you see your current reality. Are you satisfied with it? Do you feel lonely? And why do you feel lonely? What have been certain decisions or conversations that you've had that have, you know, gotten to this point? What patterns do you run in your relationships? Do you run self-sabotage patterns in your relationships? Okay? Or do you attract individuals who don't compensate fairly? Whatever it is, it does feel like in some area of your life it could be a me versus them type mentality that's coming up, okay? Because I feel like there's also been, you know, insecurities around your beliefs in yourself. Some of you could certainly feel a lack of confidence because I've been telling Leo placements for a hot minute that, you know, you might feel more isolated than normal. You might feel like you don't fit in with others. You might feel like there's always something that comes up with another individual, maybe like drama or feeling left out. And a lot of you have uncertainties with where the future is going. Maybe you've depended a lot on other individuals for what the future could be. But I'm telling you, I feel like, you know, since July, some of you have been having some relationship stuff come up. Maybe some of you have gone through breakups, divorces, separations, and it doesn't have to all be doom and gloom, okay? For some of you, it could just literally be you being like, you know what, I don't feel like situations are reciprocated in this dynamic, so I'm gonna have a conversation about it, and it's easy to, you know, fix, okay? But for some of you, you could be learning to navigate life with another individual that maybe there's tension with, or navigate life now without that individual, okay? And your mind can be obsessive about it. And in fact, yeah, I feel like earlier in the week of like January 26th and stuff, I feel like conversations could have exposed certain truths about a relationship dynamic, okay? Or there can be just a lot of intensity in that area of a lack of reciprocation, or a lack of, you know, feeling respected by certain individuals, or information that just can feel a little overwhelming to hear all of this sudden. And I feel like for some of you can be communicating that you no longer want to continue in a certain relationship dynamic with other individuals. Maybe some of you were involved with an authority figure, or, you know, you were involved with somebody at work, or even if, you know, you have a public platform, there can be some disconnect with your audience, or there can be disconnect with, you know, certain clients that you might have. That's also possible. Maybe you don't feel respected by these individuals, or you don't feel like, you know, you're receiving the recognition that you deserve. But there's, you know, a lot of you are just learning to have more confidence within yourself and not having to rely on the validation from other people and other, you know, because you don't need to rely on their sense of validation. You don't need their approval, okay? Some of you could have put your life on hold, or put your future dreams on hold because there's insecurities around not trusting yourself, not believing in yourself, not believing that you can take these leaps of faith, or because you're waiting around to see if somebody's going to choose you to go forward, okay? Or putting your eggs all in one basket because you believe that they got some say in what your future should look like, or what your beliefs should look like. You know, some of you have been giving your power away, and it's time to take back that power, babe. Take it back. Stand in your authority. The more that you're going to be standing in your authority and having deep respect for yourself, and having, for some of you, respect in your relationships, okay? Talking through things in a mature manner, rather than dragging it into, you know, chaos and drama. I know that's like associated with the Leo trope, but, you know, a lot of that stuff is getting cleared out. And it's a really beautiful process to be like, hey, this may have been the old patterns of my relationship in the past, but obviously they don't work out. So we're going to do things a new way. We're going to do things from a place of personal accountability, confidence, honor. And I'm going to, you know, draw new boundaries in these relationships going forward, where I deserve respect, but there's a mutual respect there, okay, an equal reciprocation. But I'm not going to dim my light, and I'm not going to, you know, look for external validation. and these connections, because I got it right here, okay? I got it right here. You have the opportunity to heal a lot of your insecurities right now. You have the opportunity to really stand strong in your belief systems and really speak your truths, you know, without any shame, without any guilt, because I feel like a lot of shame wounds have also been activated over the past 6 months, okay? So really own whatever, you know, has happened, and take that as a lesson that you've learned and that you've grown from exponentially, and that you can now expand into your most beautiful, vibrant version of self, okay? You don't need to be stuck into the past. You don't need to be worrying if other people are going to be coming along with you or not. All right, Virgo. I feel like a lot of you have been dealing with a world of anxiety for the past 6 months. Since around July, I feel like some of you have been feeling the need to go in ghost mode, or, you know, kind of, some of you could feel like you're in a state of limbo as well, or, you know, having regrets about certain things, or getting really tied to situations from the past, working on your boundaries, okay? Ever since that, you know, eclipse season this past year, a lot of y'all have been working on boundary setting, and that's going to be really significant for a lot of you at the moment. Some of you over the past week, you know, January 26th, back in like the 21st, around then, you know, I definitely see that y'all have been getting sudden truths maybe about your health, or there's been irritations around your daily routine being disrupted, therefore triggering even more anxiety, if that's a pattern that y'all run, okay? Or certain boundaries getting pushed. Sudden truths could be surfacing at work. Sudden truths could be surfacing around your health. Some, you know, for some of you, you're realizing how much more serious you need to get about your routine. And I just feel like some of that's just been significantly disrupted. Therefore, you know, creating even stronger boundaries, stronger nitpickiness within yourself. And I'm not saying anything's going wrong, of course, but within this chart, it just feels like there's a lot of anxiety around the unknown, and anxiety around what you cannot control, okay? And you're realizing that, yeah, you're not going to be able to control a lot of, you know, situations that are happening outside of you. Yeah, your daily routines can take a hit, okay? But you're learning how to adapt to these situations and having more empathy for yourself through this process, rather than being so hard on yourself if you get that way, being so critical about yourself if you get that way. Okay, it's really healing all of that, you know, the Virgo trope, okay? All that stuff is surfacing so that you can be like, you know what, I'm gonna be nicer to myself through these processes. You know what, I do have a routine that I like to stick to, but if situations are, you know, demanding my attention elsewhere, or, you know, things are shutting down and I'm not able to do this, then I'm gonna take a step back and breathe, and I'm gonna figure it out. Things always work out. They always work out, don't they? What's the worst thing that's gonna happen? Now, don't get too spirally about that, okay? Don't start being like, what is the worst thing that could happen? That's gonna happen, okay? The more that you ruminate, the more it's gonna keep that anxiety loop going. So we're gonna breathe through this stuff, okay? Because I know that there can, yeah, I just feel like your thoughts and your beliefs are just magnifying, and it's just like you're focusing on the smallest things and blowing them out of proportion. Yeah, there's a lot of things that are being blown out of proportion for some of you. So really tone that down. Try to focus on the bigger picture, okay? The more that you can focus on the bigger picture rather than, you know, well, this isn't done, well, this isn't done, well, this is happening and it's getting in the way of me being able to do this that I normally do, so I'm way behind on that. Focus on the bigger picture. Look at all the stability that you've created in your life in general, okay? I know that Virgo placements are really, really good at, you know, creating something out of nothing. So y'all already have that innate ability to do that. So don't be worried if a wrench gets thrown in your plans. Don't get worried if, you know, you have to skip out on your routine for a week because something has happened or there's not a certain plan that's able to get put into place. There's a lot of unknowns. Don't worry about that because y'all already run these beautiful patterns where you can set yourself up for success overnight. Okay? Y'all are, like, whenever I look at Virgo, I just see this individual who can put together the most immaculate building out of nowhere, okay? Y'all create systems out of nowhere. If we were all stranded on an island and we could only choose, you know, a few people, I would choose somebody with heavy Virgo placements because they are gonna know how to get it done. They're gonna know how to, you know, direct other individuals to creating, okay? Y'all give great directions, especially if you have heavy 6th house in your chart along with your Virgo placements, okay? And this is a period of time where I think that there can be some frustrations with other individuals in your life because you're realizing how much you feel like you need to take care of them, or you feel like you need to, you know, do things for them because they're not doing them in the right way. But I urge you all to stop doing that, okay, and focus on yourself because that's just giving you more anxiety than you need to have, okay? So create those boundaries because I feel like other people and their situations are driving you crazy. And then you feel like, you know, you can't do anything for yourself. You don't feel like you can have alone time to yourself. You don't feel like there's proper space there. So y'all need to really affirm those boundaries, okay? And I know I touched on some health stuff earlier. I'm not predicting health issues for you whatsoever, but for some of you, you can be coming to some sudden truths around health stuff if that has already been resonating for you. Y'all are just learning to really let go of control. You're learning to let go of certain individuals if they have controlled you or taken up, you know, a lot of your resources and a lot of your time. I feel like some of you, because I always say Virgo placements are the types that'll come over to your house, look at your fridge, be like, I don't like the way that it's all crazy in here. I'm gonna take it upon myself to organize this for you. And then you're gonna get upset because they didn't show appreciation for you doing that in the first place. But the thing is, you know, it's like you allow yourself to let other people's realities impact yours. And you're learning to create boundaries so that that doesn't happen, so that other people's realities do not distort yours, okay? So allow that process to happen. Some of you could also be, you know, feel like you're indebted to other individuals, or they feel indebted to you, and you're also releasing those patterns as well. It's necessary. This is a necessary process. And I think the more that you're looking at the big picture right now and noticing the hard work and efforts that you've already put in, notice this like solid routine that you've already created. And if you haven't created a solid routine, you know, I think that some of you are being like, you know what, I think it's time that I get a little bit more serious in that area. You know, the more structured that you're being right now and focusing on being in your body rather than, you know, crashing out or getting anxious that you can't control situations, you know, the better of a time you're gonna have. The more that you can look forward to the future, be optimistic about the future, realize that you are capable of creating a beautiful thing, I think the better of a time you're gonna have. All right, Libra, let's have a conversation. A lot of you could be dealing with things that are happening out of your control, and there can be the tendency to get a really big ego and get ahead of yourself, trying to prove that you can do it all, or try to prove something to somebody, that you can overcome obstacles that are out of your control. But try not to get too confident right now if you know for a fact that normally you wouldn't be able to do these types of things. And in fact, I was kind of getting a download for Libras earlier today and the day before yesterday around how there can be the tendency to feel like you can perform through uncomfortability, and that's a beautiful skill that some of you do have, but is it authentic to you, and is it good for your well-being? Okay, ask yourself this, because for some of you, and you can also take things really personally at the moment. Hits to the ego can be taken at the moment, feeling like you're not doing enough, feel like other people are judging you based off of your performance or your abilities, seeking external validation. Okay, all of that stuff can be coming up for some of you. So try not to let the opinions and validation of others determine your worth right now, or cause you to make impulsive decisions. Some of you could be making impulsive decisions at the moment. Some of you might not like the unpredictability of your situations right now, and in fact you could be losing confidence within an area, or you could be engaging in certain dramas that just aren't the best for you. Okay, maybe some of you are also feeling really restless, anxiety. Okay, there can be truths exposed within significant relationships in your life or within your community as well. Maybe there's drama going on with some friends, or you're feeling some inauthenticities there. You're getting like sudden truths exposed in those areas. Okay, even with some childhood friends stuff could also be coming up for you at the moment for you to address. And whatever was happening back in July for you all, July of 2025, I feel like some of those situations are relevant for you at the moment, or at least topics around whatever was going on back then. We had that new moon in Leo, but we also had Leo Mercury retrograde. So there can be whatever you were working towards around that time has come to a culmination now. Okay, so maybe you're in a more stable place with your sense of community or your friendships, or you're still working on that inner stability. Okay, and instead of seeking external validation for that internal support, how can you provide that support for yourself where you're not so reliant on the thoughts, the opinions, or the stability of others in your life? Okay, if you've been doing the work, I think that you're going to be really proud of yourself for how far you've come in those senses, and you can just give yourself that validation. And that's what a lot of you have been working through just in general. I feel like some of you could be putting on a performance right now, just so that you don't cause any type of instability in your environment, just so people don't change their mind all of a sudden, and that could cause you great discomfort. And I feel like that's a pattern that some of you might run, and it's time to get rid of that. I feel like some of you might feel indebted to other individuals or situations, but you don't really want to indulge in that anymore. However, you might feel like you're indebted, or you need that validation, or whatever it is. It's time to let go of some of these contracts that you're in with other individuals. It's time to let go of those superficial connections, if that's what you're also involved in, because I know a lot of you want something deeper and more meaningful. You can also feel like shared resources could be under strain for some of you, and you're keeping a good face about it. The thing about Libra placements is y'all are really good at, you know, putting on those masks, being like, everything is great, everything is fine. But for some of you, it just feels like a performance right now, and you're feeling the heavy weight of situations. And some of you are kind of like, man, I hope this situation will end itself without me having to involve, you know, that effort, or, you know, me having to be authentic with how I feel, because then it's going to be really uncomfortable, and then it's really going to make everything feel unstable and unpredictable, you know, how things can transpire. But you're really being asked to be authentic, okay? Even if it feels like it's gonna be unstable, even if it feels like you don't know what to predict within other people's actions, you don't need to keep receiving that validation. You don't, it's already a chore keeping these individuals in your life or keeping these systems going, and they don't feel authentic to you in general. It's time to just tell them how you feel, even if it is uncomfortable in nature, okay? And I feel like there's been limitations within your career, or, you know, situations within your career could have been blown out of proportion, or you feel like you've been exerting so much energy in that area. Maybe you're trying to save a marriage. Maybe you're trying to, you know, prove your worth in your public life or within a certain career that you're expanding. But I do think that it's bringing up some relationship wounds. Maybe you don't feel like you're being fairly compensated for all the work that you're putting in. Maybe you don't feel like your partner is putting in equal work in the marriage that you're trying to save. Maybe there's, you know, promises that aren't being kept, and it feels like you have to keep putting on a performance because you feel like these individuals are going to give me these resources because they said they would, because that's in the contract. But maybe you're not receiving those resources. Maybe you're not receiving that support that you've been promised, or that you believe is going to happen. So there can be a fear that you can't keep putting on this performance anymore. You can't keep, you know, overextending yourself. You can't keep, you know, being nice anymore. I mean, you can of course be nice, but I feel like you can't keep being inauthentic to yourself. I just don't feel like you can keep that game going much longer, because you're starting to feel it's in detriment to yourself. And I think the more authentic that you can be in your connections with others, and be honest, and, you know, create that balance, because you matter too, honey. You matter too. If you have been running the pattern where you just want to keep everybody happy, you know, you don't want to ruffle any feathers, you want it to just be, you know, smooth sailing, but you've been abandoning yourself, it's time to cut that out. It's time to find balance in that area, okay? That whole Libra trope of people pleasing, overextending yourself, being the doormat, you know, and I'm not talking about you Libras with Aries placements, okay? But that has to come to an end, because you can't hold that heaviness anymore, okay? You can't keep letting people take advantage of you. And, you know, you can't keep going with the superficialness of it all. There's a lot of depth to you. And I feel like some of you are just ready to, you know, speak your minds. And it doesn't matter if it's gonna, you know, end significant relationships. If they weren't stable to begin with, they're not gonna be standing there anymore. And why would you want that in your life? Okay, you don't need that. You don't need that. You will attract the genuine connections. You will attract the genuine situations within, you know, your work life or whatever that are in alignment with you. Okay, that will be stable. That you can be authentic in. That you can be, you know what, I'm feeling a little tired, and, you know, you promised me this. You're not keeping up with your promises. So I don't know if we can continue. You know, having those conversations where you can be authentic about how you're really feeling, and not worry that the ground is going to crumble beneath you, okay? Or worry that other people are going to judge you for the decisions that you need to make. So you can let go of those anxieties. All right, Scorpio, let's have a conversation. Some of you might have home situations that are impacting your ability to go to work or be present in your public life or be present in your marriage. I just feel like some of you could literally have like a physical situation. Like for me, I'm a Scorpio moon, and you know, I can't get to work because I'm trapped at home due to this ice storm. So it can literally physically manifest like that in your particular chart. But it could also manifest in that, you know, you have a lot of truth coming up within your personal relationships, maybe truth surfacing in the family, and that is impacting your ability to focus at work, your ability to perform. It can, maybe some of your own personal stuff is being aired out to the public, or you know, people in your environment, and that could be impacting your image. Okay, especially if some of you, you know, have a platform that many see. You know, maybe some family drama is being aired out, or you know, you can't keep your emotions to yourself at the moment. It feels like your emotions are on display for everybody to see, and we know that Scorpio placements do not like that. Okay, you can be having just some significant truths exposed within your family life, within your close personal relationships, some revelations maybe about the home that you live in. Okay, maybe you also want to move because you're realizing that you don't want to live with certain people anymore. You don't feel so close and connected with individuals that have always been in your life. Okay, or some of you feel like too many vulnerabilities are being exposed, so then you would have to hide away in your work. Okay, this can manifest in a million different ways, but I do think that personal life and your emotions or home life is getting in the way of you being able to perform to the best of your ability. And if you can think back to July 2025, that's whenever we had that new moon here in Leo, and we also had Mercury retrograde in Leo as well. So whatever you were dealing with then, this is kind of the culmination of that energy now. So maybe you had started a new job, or you know, you were given a new position at work, maybe you were promoted, okay, or you were working towards that, and now you would like to see more fruits from your labor. But maybe this whole time, situations at home or within your personal relationship has prevented you from that growth. It just feels like, you know, the inner world is preventing you from moving forward. Maybe, you know, a certain authority figure is saying you need to figure out some of your personal issues. You know, maybe they don't feel like you're performing up to task, or you have those worries, and I'm not here to, you know, add to any worries whatsoever. Maybe it can be easy for you to get personally triggered at the moment. And of course, if you bring that into your marriage, or you bring that into your public life, or you bring that into work, or if you have run-ins with an authority figure, you know, it can always lead to some heaviness, especially for Scorpio placements. For some of you, it could be easy for you to get into arguments with family members or people that you're close with, or, you know, matters of the home, even landlords. There can be some tension around, you know, finances, shared finances with another individual that you're close with as well. That can come up out of nowhere right now. That can be a little challenging. Or if, you know, you live with somebody, there can be tensions there too. Maybe you feel like there's not a lot of reciprocation in your interactions. It can be easy to take things the wrong way at the moment. Some of you could break up with certain individuals in your life just based off of your emotions, okay? So I would take a step back and breathe through any uncomfortabilities that are coming up and don't react on your emotions right now. Because that's also a big thing. Your emotional world can really disrupt how people perceive you at the moment. That's also a really big thing. So emotional regulation is going to be significant and huge for some of you. Okay, because some of you could get emotional and quit your job. Some of you could get emotional and confront an authority figure and they could fire you. And I'm not predicting anybody's getting fired, but you do want to reel in the emotional world. Okay, I know it's been hard for some of you getting vulnerable with other individuals in your life. And I feel like some of you would be susceptible to, more lashing out and kind of anger than, coming into work and just like crying. But be careful with what you're saying and who you're saying it to. That's all I'm saying, okay? That's why it's good to have astrology, because it's like a good little tool to work with. To be like, hey, you might be more susceptible to get it feeling personally attacked right now, but this can impact, your position at work. Okay, some of you might also feel disrespected at work, or feel a lot of pressure, and then that is impacting your home life and impacting your personal relationships. So you just need to find a nice balance in that area. Okay, balance needs to be had to some capacity, because a lot of y'all let your emotional world build up before it is too late, and then out of nowhere it's just like a bomb explodes. We don't want that. We don't want that, Scorpio. So get that, regulate your emotions as, situations arise, and do it in a healthy manner. There can be a lot of black and white thinking at the moment as well. And a lot of you have been working through the wound around not feeling prepared enough, not feeling like you have control over situations. Some of you could also have some health stuff that's come up that also can dominate the mind, but I'm not predicting any type of health stuff for any of you, of course. It's only if it's already an occurring issue. But there can certainly be anxieties or worries that can get blown out of proportion easily, especially since Jupiter's been in Cancer for y'all. So don't let yourself go there. Don't let yourself spiral. And, the more that you're, being kind to yourself, and because it does feel like some of your attention needs to be turned inward. Some of your attention does need to be focused on rest. Some of your attention does need to, be focused on certain family members or close personal relationships. Some of those things do need tending to. And I know that y'all like to distract yourself in your work or, going towards your goals. But some of these things, they need working on right now. And you can't avoid it. You can't avoid any of, the stuff that's coming up for you. So the more that you can heal your wounds around, needing to control situations, needing things to go a very specific way, negative self-talk, it's time to nip all that in the bud. Okay? There can be individuals in your life that, you can talk through things with. You can talk through some things with some individuals. And maybe involve someone close in your life, involve them in your daily routines, make it more, instead of isolating yourself, get more comfortable with including someone in your daily routines. People can really surprise you right now. And the more that you're focusing on, creating that structure, getting more comfortable with the unknown, the more that you can trust yourself, the more that you can get, serious with the direction that you're wanting to head, and you can find that nice, healthy balance within your personal life and within your public life. I think the easier of a time you're gonna have. Give yourself that validation. You don't need the validation of authority figures. You don't need the validation of close people in your life. Let go of any of those insecurities and know that you've built that internal structure that's really gonna launch you into your, your dreams and your goals. All right, Sag, so let's have a conversation. I feel like there can be some confrontations at the moment for some of you. There can be sudden truths that are brought to light, or necessary conversations that have needed to be had. And especially within the past week, probably around like the 21st of January and forward, there could have been significant truths revealed to you out of nowhere. Maybe some of you had to move all of a sudden. I feel like a lot of you, moving could be on the table, or at least a topic for discussion, or, a significant travel thing that needs to happen. Maybe some of you are focused on, a big trip that you're going on. Maybe back in July, you had planned, a significant trip or a significant move. And, maybe there's been word and discussion that has sabotaged that move or that trip. Doesn't have to be sabotage. But I think that some reconsidering and rethinking could be had at the moment. Maybe there's day-to-day circumstances that are impacting what you thought the long term would be. Or things are disrupting, situations like your education. Maybe you were going back to school, but situations within your neighborhood are preventing you from, going to school, or making those travel plans that you had wanted, or preventing you from moving to a certain area that you wanted to move to. Okay, a lot of annoying disruptions for sure. I feel like some of you are very busy at the moment, and I feel like you just feel a little tangled up in the day-to-day, that you feel like it's setting you off path, or you're not able to tap into the bigger picture because you're so caught up in like the little tiny minute situations. Okay, like maybe there's arguments and disagreements. Some people are have that black and white thinking going on, which Sag can be associated with. Okay, but I feel like there's just some arguments that could be surfacing that can be impacting your future. Maybe some of you could be ending it with a significant other because you feel like there's, your belief systems are so dramatically different. But there is the tendency to blow things out of proportion with this placement right here. And I do think that I feel like some of you could be facing burnt out energy for sure as well. Some of you can be feeling a little burnt out. Some of you could be tired of working through a situation. Maybe you feel like you've had too many conversations of the same nature and it's not getting anywhere. It's not providing any type of fulfillment, and you don't see it, lasting. You don't see the situation improving down the road. Okay, but I do think that the more that you can allow situations to transform and be comfortable with the transformations that need to be had, I do think that things can start moving more smoothly for you. I just think that there's some inner belief systems that are getting rewired, and that takes time. But y'all need to not think that you need to make decisions right now, that you need to have the answers right now. That since in this moment I've decided this, then this is what it is. Take a step back, because some of you have been heavily in your self-sabotage patterns. So I just wouldn't get too hung up on the small details. Okay, don't get so caught up on the small details right now. If you've had certain health stuff showing up, there can be some news in that area for some of you. You could be receiving, advice that could be very helpful. And it doesn't just have to be health stuff, and I'm not making predictions about health issues whatsoever. I do think that more clarity can be had in that area if that is resonant with you. But I think some of you are wanting to get your stuff together because you're realizing what it's going to take to achieve that future that you want. Because maybe you had certain plans, certain goals that you'd set last summer, and you're finding that maybe you're not as prepared as you would like to be, or situations have dramatically shifted and you're not even in the same reality that you were last summer. So I think you're called to get more serious about that. You're getting more, you've got more intel, you've got more insights onto what could have gone wrong in the past, and it doesn't have to be that anything's wrong, but I do think that a lot of you are rerouting. You're in a system of rerouting right now, or trying to figure out what it is that you want, and you're trying to figure out what you believe about a circumstance. You don't need the answers right now, but I think a lot of you are wanting answers. You want the answers immediately, but some of these things do take time. The more patient that you're willing to be and work through things, have a nice system set up, have a nice, consistency locked in, because some of y'all are getting your Sagittarius escape mode. Some of y'all are ready to get in those little escape pods, little jetpacks, and just take off. But I feel like circumstances have it to where your little short-term decisions have long-term consequences, okay? And a lot of y'all have been consistently learning that over the past 6 months. So I think it's being communicated to you that the more stabilized that you can get, the more set in your routines that you can get, the more stable you're gonna be, and the better of a future you're going to attract, okay? All right, Capricorn, let's have a conversation. It feels like there can be some insecurities arising, and maybe even some scarcity mindset that can also be arising as well. I feel like some of you can be reevaluating if you would like to re-sign a lease. Maybe there's certain debts that you're wanting to pay off. However, I think that some of you could be experiencing maybe some financial setbacks, or you don't even have to be experiencing financial setbacks, but there can be some type of scarcity, maybe even scarcity around time. Are you going to be able to pay off a certain debt in an amount of time? Are you gonna have the certain financial resources to renew a lease, or maybe you've been wanting to get out a certain contract, but you're weighing out the pros and cons. Would this be financially beneficial for me? Or maybe it doesn't even have to do anything with finances whatsoever. It could be that you're finding stability. You want to find more stability in a connection, or you're receiving truths in a connection that can feel a little destabilizing in nature, but you're reassessing, what are my values, and do your values align with me? Do we continue this? Okay, because I think that some of you are parting ways with old ways of being, parting ways with certain individuals that don't provide the type of value that you're looking for. There can be some significant truths that are surfaced as well in situations that can feel a little destabilizing in nature. And I'm not predicting that y'all are going to be unstable about something. However, I do think that there's just been a lot of surprises that have come up. Maybe sudden expenses have arisen for you, and therefore maybe you've had to take out a loan, and now you're like, oh well, no, I'm in debt. Okay. Just like those types of things can easily have arisen right now. And if that hasn't happened for you, then I'm not predicting it for you. But if it has, I'm just telling you what is happening astrologically. But whatever you were dealing with this summer back in July, because we had that new moon in Leo, we had Mercury retrograde in Leo. So whatever you were working on around that time, it is now a culmination. Maybe back then you're like, I'm going to pay off some of these debts, or I'm going to think about renewing a certain contract or getting out of a certain contract with an individual or a situation. Have you been able to go through with that? Or have you received financial setbacks and you weren't able to, complete that cycle? So ask, if that's the case, ask yourself, how can I set myself up for better success going forward? What boundaries do I need to make? Okay. And what really needs to be released, because there is, a release process. Okay. That, there can also be a bit of obsession as well. That's come up over the past 6 months. Maybe some rumination on past matters that keep you stuck. It's like very stubborn energy here. So whatever has kept you stuck in those same old cycles, it's time to release that stuff, and it feels like some of you can really be getting stuck in the ego at the moment, or, feel a little embarrassed about, maybe certain financial situations that you're in, or, embarrassed about boundaries that are being set or boundaries that are being crossed. Doesn't even have to be embarrassment, okay? But I do think that for some of you, you can really let your pride get in the way if you need help right now. Or, there can be the tendency to get a little cocky at the moment as well. So allow yourself to be vulnerable and to communicate with people in your life that, hey, I could really use some help right now. Or, hey, you said this to me and this is how I feel about it. Do we need to, set boundaries, or do we need to, talk about what we value, or that I need to feel valued in order to remain in this connection? Because some of you just might not feel valued at the moment, okay? There can certainly be some indication pointing to that. So the more that you can, be authentic with yourself and, create your own internal sense of stability, let down the pride, let down the ego, okay? And let other people in, let other people help you right now if that's what you need, okay? Because from the looks of this chart, it just feels like you might need to lean on other people at the moment, and that is completely okay. There's been a lot of insecurities around relationships and equal give and take. There's been insecurities around family dynamics and, your close relationships, your close partnerships. There's been insecurities around, your living situation, matters at home, people that you let in. And I think that there can be insecurities within, your financial realm, or, feeling indebted to others. So allow yourself to get comfortable with these necessary transformations that are taking place. And if situations are, leaving your life, because it's been a 6-month process. So if you've been, resisting, being stubborn, those changes are happening regardless if you want them to or not, okay? So allow the change to happen and lean on other people during this process if that's what needs to happen. Have conversations with individuals in your life, nurture those connections, create more stable connections, create a more stable foundation for yourself, and allow yourself to really be vulnerable. Allow yourself to melt that heart of yours, if you feel like it's been a little icier more than normal, okay? And trust that there are people in your corner if you need somebody, okay? All right, Aquarius. Some of you could be dealing with, certain relationship dynamics or other people in your life where it feels like You know, you either have to choose this or you have to choose that. Or that could have been, you know, a theme throughout the past 6 months since, you know, this past summer. It feels like other people in your life might not be seeing or understanding why you're choosing to do the things you're doing or saying the things that you're saying. There can certainly be arguments in that area right now. A lot of you might have a lot of reluctance in defending yourself or feel like you have to defend yourself with other individuals. And I think over the past 6 months, there's been a theme of, you know, trying to find a nice balance, trying to seek justice in certain situations, you know, trying to find an equal amount of give and take. Are certain people in your life taking more than they're contributing? Or, you know, is that a theme for you that you've been trying to work on? So that can certainly be coming up for some of you. It can also feel like you've outgrown certain relationship dynamics, or you've outgrown certain partnerships, or where you live. You don't feel comfortable in where you live. Okay, I feel like personal relationships, family life, matters at the home, matters with your physical home, have felt constraining or unpredictable or unstable to some capacity, and that's causing a lot of physical irritation. I feel like some of you are at the point where you're like, I need to physically get myself out of this situation. I have to do it. I feel so uncomfortable. Okay, and not all of you. It's not obviously going to be extreme for everybody, but I do think that there is a sense of irritability and an instability within your relationships with other individuals. Okay, and it's really going to come to a head around this full moon, because you're really going to see like what patterns and behaviors you've been running in relationships. And it doesn't have to be romantic. They can be, you know, any type of relationship that you have with another individual. We have relationships with our friends, with our coworkers, with our, you know, clients, with our siblings, roommates. You know, we have a relationship with everybody. And it's also about feeling valued as well. Have you been feeling valued? And have other people in your life been, you know, receiving that type of validation from you as well? So a lot of self-reflection is also being called upon you during this period of time as well. So I think that a lot of you've been really bored and, you know, dealing with just the day-to-day routine. Some of you feeling trapped in your routine, and no Aquarius wants to feel trapped, okay? So I just get the sense of restlessness, like you've been working towards a certain goal, but it's like you never get there. And then I feel like some of you get so irritable right now that it's easy to spark arguments. It's easy to, you know, get your feelings hurt or hurt somebody else's feelings at the moment. So you feel like every little tiny thing that you say, it's like you're walking on eggshells with certain individuals. You know, whenever you just really want to be yourself, but you feel like being yourself, you have to walk on eggshells. So I think a lot of you have reached, you know, a breaking point where you're like, I'm not going to do this anymore. And I can easily see some people separating from significant relationships right now. If you're an Aquarius, if you have an Aquarius placement, I can certainly see, you know, situations reaching to a head. Somebody says one little wrong thing to you right now and you are quick to get on out of there. That certainly feels like a possibility. Some of you could be, you know, maybe you've been really faithful to a certain job or a certain boss or a certain client, but, you know, you've reached your breaking point and you're like, I can't do this anymore. This is not giving me any type of value anymore. And I feel like I'm either being taken advantage of, or there's not an equal reciprocity here, and it feels more heavy on my part to continue staying in this situation. Okay, because I feel like a lot of you have been trying to work through something that could be coming to a head now. And it just feels like all you've been doing is working through some stuff. All you've been doing is like receiving criticism or giving criticism and just, you know, being in this very analytical, like, I don't know, it just feels very nitpicky energy. And we all know that Aquarius don't like to be in that energy, you know? So, of course, if you feel like another individual is giving you that type of behavior, or if you feel so trapped, you're going to want to break free. Okay? I definitely see that. And I think the more that you can heal your relationship with around communication, because that's been a big wound that's been activated for some of you, communicating and, speaking about how you really feel, speaking up about how you feel about situations, being confrontational, feeling more into confrontation, because I feel like there's been a lot of passive aggression that's been accumulating for over the past 6 months. And now's the time where you're being asked to confront these situations, confront these individuals, or they're confronting you, and it's giving you that, that platform to really speak about how you feel. And that might mean that you're going down another road, That might mean that, you could be parting ways. Some of you could also be dealing with some car stuff that's been coming up, I would be cautious driving, okay? Or just commuting, getting around. I'm not predicting anything bad for you. I'm just saying be extra observant when you are behind the wheel right now, okay? Just because Chiron's in that area and it's aspecting some personal planets going through Aquarius at the moment. So for the next couple of weeks, just be cautious of where you're going, okay? And I think that also be cautious with the things that you're saying as well, because it's easy to spark arguments right now. A lot of people are feeling unstable and not themselves right now. There's a lot of irritability going around for everybody. So just be conscientious of how, you're presenting yourself. Do you run patterns of, not really having empathy or considering the needs of others around you? Because some of you might be in the position where you're receiving not the best type of treatment from others, but also it's a time where you're also doing your own self-reflecting, your own observations about the patterns that you bring to the table in relationships and other dynamics as well. Okay? So I'm not saying you're a bad person. No, I'm saying that this is a time for everybody to do some inner reflection. And I think that that's also been a process that you've been going through the past 6 months, is reflecting on the type of relationships that you bring into your life, reflecting on the type of, energy and, reciprocity that you're also sending out. Where have you gone wrong? Where have they gone wrong? Why do you keep attracting that? Why do you keep allowing that into your life or your field? Why do you keep running and escaping from it? All of that. And it's really just to build you into a better version of yourself overall. Okay? And I think that some of you could be moving right now, or you will be in the near future. So you have the opportunity to make a lot of headway in figuring out where you want that to be. And if you're not moving, I do see if you've had some, troubles in certain relationships that, if you just allow yourself to be vulnerable and allow yourself to have deep conversations, overlooking the, hardness and the heaviness, if you run avoidant, stepping out of that avoidance and really coming together, coming up with solutions, I think that things could work out. Okay, I think that you have the opportunity to improve a certain personal relationship in your life if that's what you're looking to do. Yeah, that's definitely supportive if you're willing to transform certain situations that need to be transformed, or if you need to, clear the air with some information, if you, feel like you need to have deeper conversations that might feel a little exposing. That could be healing for some of you, okay? That could heal a lot of relational dynamics, or it can make situations within the home life a little bit more comfortable if you've been feeling that way. Yeah, this is definitely a time to heal wounds around communicating in your significant relationships. And it's a time where you can really talk through your vulnerabilities, or talk through, certain observations maybe you've had about another person. I think that this is a time where you can really get closer with another individual, or you can gain more clarity or give them more clarity. If you're ready to move on, this is the time where you're probably communicating that. If they're ready to move on, this is probably the time where you're hearing that. But if you're willing to work through it or, evolve in this situation, and like I said, it does not have to be romantic. This can be, a good friend, a roommate, a client, someone who you work for, whoever this is resonating with. This is just a time where you're going to get more clarity and a certain cycle is coming to an end in that area. All right, Pisces, let's have a conversation. I feel like a lot of you are clearing up patterns around self-sacrifice. And for a while, for around the past 6 months, you've been working through situations around setting boundaries and focusing on your health. And I feel like some mental health stuff could be like circulating for some of you, or you feel kind of left in the dark or, kind of disappearing. But I think that there's certain confrontations that need to be had if you haven't been sticking to your routine, if you haven't been, properly grounding yourself, if you haven't been holding your boundaries, if you haven't been showing up and doing the work every day, it's going to be quite pronounced right now. If you have been doing those things, of course, I think that you're going to start feeling really stable, feeling more financially stable, feeling more secure in your boundaries, feeling more fulfilled within the values that you've set for yourself. But if you haven't been focusing on those things for the past 6 months, I do think that some of you could be leaning in your avoidance, avoiding, the necessary things that need to be done, the necessary confrontations that need to be had, the necessary chores that even need to be done around the house. Some of you could be receiving confrontations about, hey, why haven't you been showing up here? Hey, why have you disappeared? Why do you disappear whenever, we need to work through some things? Because your disappearance isn't going to, get much done. We can't just ignore that this happened and move on. Okay? And I'm not saying that you're doing that, but if you have been doing that, now is the time that that's really going to be pronounced, where you might receive some confrontations in that area. However, it also could speak that there's some anxieties around, certain health stuff that could be coming up. There's some anxieties about where a certain job is going. Are you going to get a new job? Because this job the one that you are currently in, might not be fulfilling you or, financially benefiting you to some capacity. So a lot of you could be working through that. I just feel like there's been a lot of grunt work that's needed to be put in the past 6 months. And if you've been avoiding it, now is the time where you're going to be like, oh, why did I avoid it? Or why did I go back to the past? If you've been stuck in the past and, either feeling sorry for yourself. I know this is sounding kind of heavy, to be honest, but Pisces placements, y'all are in for some stuff right now if you haven't been working on your sense of stability and your sense of structure. And this is kind of where this is at. Okay, so if you've been avoiding that, Pisces, your patterns around escapism, avoidance, self-sabotage, regret, all of that stuff, victimhood, all stuff associated with Pisces, all that heaviness is like really getting washed away right now, like a deep cleanse. On a mass scale, we can see it everywhere as Neptune's going into Aries and Saturn's going into Aries. So this is quite significant for you all, okay? Because I think that there's a lot of uncomfortable conversations that can be surfacing for some of you at the moment, and you could be trying to avoid them or disappear. You don't want to have these conversations. Or maybe you're the one who's initiating these conversations and other people are not around. People are not available to you, And maybe it's because it's time to move on from certain individuals. It's time to stop, putting your trust and your faith in certain individuals that don't deserve it. And it's time to put those boundaries up, because that's also going to be a really big thing for you, especially as Saturn goes from Pisces into Aries. Okay, significant boundaries are going to need to be set. If you haven't been getting serious about your sense of stability, if you haven't been getting serious about your finances, this is when it's going to be really magnified for you. And I've been telling Pisces placements this since I started these horoscopes this past summer in like June. I've been telling you all that you've been needing to get focused on your sense of stability. And if you've been getting focused on your sense of stability, then I feel like you're gonna blossom quite quickly right now. But if you haven't, this is whenever, you're gonna start being like, oh, I should have done that a long time ago. I should have done that a long time ago. When am I gonna get a break? When am I gonna get a break? This whole 6 months has kind of been for Pisces placements. When do I get a break? It's always something, but you gotta take accountability. Okay, that's what this whole process has been about. Taking accountability, waking up to certain situations, getting yourself out of certain situations, because nobody's gonna come and save you. Okay, that's the point. That's the point of this. You're realizing, hey, I'm the one who has to put in this work, and I'm the one who will reap the benefits and the rewards by putting in this work. Okay, that's what the past 6 months lessons have been about. So if you have been putting in the work, if you have been, getting it together, taking accountability, staying in something, even if it's really hard, even if it means like you're losing certain individuals from your life, or it means, staying in a situation where in the past, you would rather have escaped. If you stuck through that, I think that you're really gonna see some great rewards come online for you pretty soon. However, if you didn't, if you've just avoided and you keep like, being like, oh, it's everybody else, it's not me, just kind of being in that mentality, you're just really not gonna like your results going forward. It's really gonna keep you in that cycle of always something to work on, always something to work on. When do I get a break? When do I get a break? Why is everybody mean to Pisces? And I love Pisces placements, okay? I got a heavy 12th house. I got a Venus in Pisces, baby. I got a 12th house sun and Mercury. I'm pretty Pisces myself. And I've had to go through these types of situations to become a more resilient version of myself. And that's what has been asked of most of you, okay? If you resonate with this. So what I say is like with all the deepest love, and I've been talking to y'all like this since I started my horoscopes, because it's so important for y'all to get grounded in reality, because Neptune and Saturn and Aries is gonna rock your world if you are not, getting serious and taking responsibility, setting boundaries. If multiple people are telling you the same thing, that individual is not good for you, and you're like, but I just can't escape it, I just can't escape it. That's gonna get really loud for you, okay? It's gonna get really loud for you. And it's not me doing that, it's literally the planets communicating right now, going into Aries. They're like, if you haven't woken up now, you're about to get a brutal wake-up call, because Aries is blunt and rude, okay? Aries is blunt and rude. And y'all are sensitive little sweethearts, some of you. So I hold your hand whenever I say this. If you haven't been taking responsibility, if you've been avoiding situations, you've been avoiding certain conversations that need to be had, because I feel like conversations can feel destabilizing. For some of you, the way that you're thinking about things can be a little unstable as well. So I would just get as grounded as you can and do the uncomfortable things, okay? Do the uncomfortable things that are gonna prioritize more stability in your life instead of escaping them, instead of avoiding. Avoidance isn't going to get you very far right now. And some of you could be prioritizing romantic situations, or you could be prioritizing, pleasures of, escaping into some type of pleasurable activities. And that can really throw off your finances or your sense of stability, okay? Maybe there are certain people you keep letting back in for validation, but that you can tell how much they've been wearing on your boundaries and within your personal space. They don't respect your values, and they don't have to be of a romantic nature, but I just feel like some of you are very kind-hearted and you let people in very easily because you trust them. But those boundaries are going to be so important and significant for you. And the thing is Saturn and Neptune are going into Aries. Your boundaries are going to get tested. Your boundaries are going to get tested. Your finances are going to get tested. If you've been working on these areas over the past 6 months, you should be good to go. Okay, you should be good to go. But I'm telling you, Saturn doesn't play around, especially conjoining Neptune. That's like the ultimate reality check right there. Okay, and that's going to be happening mid-February. So if you're watching this right now and you're resonating with this, where you have been turning a blind eye to some red flags, or you've been kind of slacking in the work department, or avoiding necessary situations that need to come together, not taking responsibility for certain things, or just allowing yourself to be really ungrounded right now, you're going to want to correct that. You still have time. And I'm not saying any major thing is going to happen around that time, but I am saying if you're resonating with this, things are just going to keep getting tougher and tougher for you until you prioritize getting it together, really focusing on your stability, not letting anybody outside of you, deter you from doing that, or relying on somebody outside of you to do things for you, or you doing things for them. You can't save anybody and nobody can save you. And that's the point of these planets going into Aries. Oh, babe, you're really gonna thrive whenever you get serious about setting these boundaries. Whenever you get serious about, your financial situation, stop ignoring it, stop avoiding it. That's whenever things are really gonna start flowing for you. The more that you can be consistent and show up every day, get so solid in your routines, get so solid in those routines, get serious about your health. I'm not predicting health stuff for you, but that's only if it's, an occurring thing. Just get serious about the little tiny things in your lives and stop trying to avoid them or escape or, wish things were different. A lot of you are spending a lot of time in your mind, and that can cause a lot of anxiety and worrying. And the more that you're getting in your body, the better things are gonna be. So, if you relate to that, if you resonate with that, I have a really big 12th house, so I consider myself, one of y'all, okay? And the best thing that has helped me is by focusing on my everyday routines. I focus on prioritizing getting into my body, even whenever situations feel uncomfortable, even whenever I, feel like I can't do it. I make sure that I'm in my body every morning, okay? And I prioritize going to the gym, and it doesn't have to be the gym, but it's just like find something that you can be consistent in. Find something where you are gonna be reliable for yourself, that you can trust yourself to follow through with situations, okay? And that's gonna really build a nice, solid, and stable base for you, because as Saturn and Neptune go through your sign, you're gonna get wake-up calls if you aren't prioritizing structure and boundaries.